By way of an addendum to my last video on Alec Baldwin's tragic accidental shooting, I will first say that although I've tried to find the birth date, even if without a birth time, for Helena Hutchins, the poor woman who was victimized by this horrific and most unfortunate event, all I see to date is that she was born in Russia in 1979, which simply isn't enough to create any kind of working chart. If anyone out there finds a birth date, please pass it on. Secondly, I want to address several comments that I saw in relation to my previous video because they were very perceptive in noticing something important that I neglected to stress during my explanation of the event from an astrological perspective as it applies to Alec Baldwin's chart. I stressed the role of Saturn in its opposition to Uranus as pivotal in reflecting that aside from safety rules and safeguards that were pretty clearly violated, this event still qualifies as a massive screw-up and the worst and most rotten luck, and certainly Saturn would be the chief planetary force to see in the current cycles, and it is indeed there, and it is opposing the appropriate planet, Uranus, in its connection to automation, even to the smallest extent of any real or pretend firearm. However, what I didn't stress is that the Mars-Uranus opposition in Baldwin's chart, being far and away the most clear alignment that reflects the event, is being transited by both Saturn and Uranus, so that this year's Uranus-Saturn square traveling through the sky is challenging Baldwin's Mars-Uranus opposition. And when two big planets like this are in a square and they challenge something in any chart, the stress and the danger is magnified and is certainly bigger than if either alone were doing it. And once either or both planets cross the degrees of the planet in the opposition that has a higher number, in this case Mars, and both did this, Saturn in April and Uranus in June, the way it is interpreted, the hit on that opposition, particularly on the Mars end of it, is that it is operational until they both travel beyond the 12 to 13 degree range, which doesn't happen until January of 2022 for Saturn and April of 2022 for Uranus. So both these planets are in play to both ends of that opposition, and as Catherine M. correctly stated, Uranus was and is pretty darn close to the degree of that Mars because it's at 13.20 Taurus, squaring the Mars at the time of the hit. And she also correctly reported that the quick traveling moon was in Taurus and near the Mars degrees at the time of the event, therefore acting as a trigger. So, bottom line, excellent observation, Catherine. Another person commented that Baldwin, due to his ownership involvement in the film, may face legal consequences should it be true that his late Libra Jupiter, being squared by Pluto for the next 2 or so years, has connections to legal entanglements through a birth time that would wire it in that way. In fact, this would be true if Pluto itself is connected to legal peril, or if the late Venus in Aquarius, which is due to be conjoined by Saturn next year, has that kind of natal problem. After all, the natal Saturn is in Sagittarius, which is a legal sign. And aside from what it can do by transiting over a planet, its own position at 25 plus Sagittarius is getting squared by Neptune over the next 2 years as well. So you can see that aside from all the psychological turmoil potential in all of this action, troublesome legalities in the context of what has happened are a definite possibility. All of this astro data for those who love to see the detail in the astrology and how even without a birth time you can often see amazing patterns that accurately reflect how and why things happen. Even if in this case it is such a tragically unfortunate event, we can only hope and pray that Alec Baldwin won't have to face too much more pain than he must already be feeling.